Alright, I'm gonna press the go live button.
Okay, go live.
Yeah. Well, what's going on, YouTube? Welcome to Water Mixable Oil Colors Change Everything. This is part of my Monday morning class with my Patreon students. So if you're interested in taking classes with me, links in the description. So this is not the painting we'll work on today, but this is one that was started last Wednesday. Today is Monday, so it's 5 days later, if I can do my counting correct. But anyway, it's less than a week. That's the thing that I want you to take away. Hey, Bean Pot, it's less than a week, and I can run my fingers across it. Like if I could, like, can you hear it?
Yes, I heard it.
Yeah, Ingrid can hear it, so that means everyone else can hear it. That's really good. It hasn't sunken in at all. There's hardly any sinking in, which, in case everyone's wondering what that means, or if somebody doesn't know what that means, with oil paints, typically the darks kind of dry, a little bit grayish. They fade sometimes, which can happen with water mixables, by the way, just not as intensely. This is a Rembrandt that I filmed a little while ago. It has sunken in some parts. I've noticed, like here, you can see that kind of grayish, but that's okay. It's not a overwhelming like sinkage or whatever. I can't even say the right words. Um, so this is the kind of finish that you can get with the techniques that I show you with water mixable. So if you can paint a Rembrandt looking thing with water mixable oil paints, no medium, no solvent, just the paint, and a little bit of water in the beginning, it's the best of the best. In the sense that the problem that at least I had when I moved into an apartment was I only have two sinks. I've got a sink for the kitchen, I've got a sink for the bathroom. So how on earth am I going to clean my brushes that have lead and cadmium using those sinks? I'd have to use a bucket outside. I'm not about that life. I don't want to do that. So all of a sudden came water mixable oil paints, which I'm about to be over a year just only painting with them now. But I used them for the first time many years ago, and I don't have any cadmiums. I don't have anything lead. They're not water-based paints. That would be correct to call them water-based. They thin with water. It is a modified linseed oil that was created in order to thin the paint out with water. When you thin it out with water, it still dries and forms a layer of dry paint, which is essentially plastic. So as long as you keep using the same consistency of medium to pigment from layer to layer, you will have a consistent paint film in the end, and you don't have to worry about any of that like cracking and all that stuff, at least not for 100 years or so. So it's a good thing. Hey Bonds, welcome. Hey Tweezle. Oh, no worries. I'm glad that you're here. So, all that said, now I'm going to switch over to the still life painting, which is the reference that you see on the left of the screen. And by the way, I'm just painting on sheets of cotton. I've had a lot of questions about this, like is this okay to do? Certainly it's okay to do. This is primed cotton canvas. I don't need to stretch it because, again, apartment life, like what are you going to do with dozens of stretchers? It's going to take up space. So if I want to sell it or whatever, I'll just mount it on a panel. I still have enough room on the corners. I can stretch it on a canvas if I want to. It's a more convenient way to paint, and it is totally fine. It's not going to harm your painting at all. Caravaggio, back in the day, he would travel with his paintings rolled up. A lot of the old masters did that, so it's perfectly fine. Other things that you'll notice is when you work with these unstretched canvases, Sometimes they get a little wrinkly, which is natural. It's not going to harm anything. In fact, when the weather changes, like right now we're going through a change, it is going to be fall soon, unless it's already fall. I don't know. I don't keep track of things. But temperature and humidity is changing drastically. So it does affect, and it does create things like this. Again, don't panic. That's stuff that happens with traditional paint as well. Not a big deal. So, as I mentioned many times before, one of the nice things about the water mixables, especially Cobra, is the fact that I can paint wet into dry without having to oil anything out, because the paint doesn't sink in. It doesn't dry differently. So I'm going to adjust my light a little bit so you can see the canvas a little better. And I'm going to show you, once again, for anyone that missed last time, I'm going to show you how you can test whether your painting has sunken in or not. Because one of the most important things about painting is values. One of the most important things, and this is part of my teaching, it's a huge part of my teaching, is light and shadow, knowing how to control the darks. Even with this rather simple setup, it is important to be able to know for sure how your darks are. And that's a vague way to put it, but I'm going to show you this test that you can do when your painting is dry. It's really useful. It will help you gauge your values, and it's one of the most important things you can do in the beginning. So, what you do is get something dark from your palette. And yes, my palette stays in the freezer when I'm not painting. Another nice thing about water mixable, you can put it in the freezer, take it out of the freezer, no big deal. So mix up something dark. This is something dark, right? It could be black if you want to, but you don't necessarily need to use black for this. And just run a little test. You can even hold the palette knife next to the canvas. You don't necessarily have to put the paint on, but I'll put the paint on. Just a little dab there. Move it across with my finger, and you'll notice that it doesn't really change anything. So that test to me shows that the paint has not sunken in dramatically. I can trust that my darkest darks are still there, and I can continue painting business as usual. Just mix the color that I want, place it down, and trust that it will remain consistent from layer to layer. This is now the third week we've worked on this. Ingrid, are you still here, or is any students still here? Okay, not sure. But again, my students are here with me on Zoom, and you can be with me on Zoom as well if you want to right now, if you really want to. Links are in the description box of the video. So now I'm going to go ahead and continue working on the painting. There's not really that much left with it, but what I do want to do is add a little bit more realism to it. So I'm going to push the contrast a little bit more between light and dark. So I'm going to go and mix up a darker value, darker than what I had before. These colors on here, by the way, these are just pre-mixtures from a painting that I was working on before. I have some art business things in mind, so I'll talk to you more about that in the future. But anyway, that's why there's paint on there. So I'm pushing my dark accents here. Hey Tweezle, you mixed them and had no problems. Let's see. Oh, did I miss something? Do you ever mix water mixables with regular oil paint? I know it will lose the water mixable thing. Yeah, you can, and I did do that in the past. You can. You're right. If you mix water mixable with traditional, it becomes traditional. It loses the water thinnable quality, but you can still use it with traditional if you want to. Hey Paul, welcome. So yeah, anyone watching this live? I know there's only about I think like 10 of us here. If you have any questions pertaining water mixable, let me know. And then I titled this, "Will water mixable change everything?" It is a valid question. I mean, painters as a whole are let's just say traditional painters are very set on their ways, especially if you're like me and you have years of training behind you. You're very set on your ways, and you're not really going to change much over the years unless you have to. For example, I moved from where I used to have access to a sink that I could clean all my brushes with. My stepdad was a mechanic, so the whole thing about the lead in the mediums and stuff, like the rags that could spontaneously combust, I would put them in a metal trash can, and then he would take care of it. Um, yeah, I don't have that anymore. I don't want to leave combustible rags in my apartment with my puppy hanging out, like running around and chewing everything he wants to chew on. And I suspect that a lot of painters now and in the future are, especially with the way the economy is these days, probably also going to be living in apartments or renting, being in places where you don't have access to um, a a sink, an art sink, a sink that's dedicated to cleaning hazardous waste, basically. So I suspect that having the ability to clean your brushes in the kitchen sink without much worry, I think will draw many people into it. That was the whole reason acrylics were popular and still are, is the fact that they're so easy to clean and they're easy to just the ease of cleaning and the lack of toxicity in acrylics, I think, is the reason most people use it. At least that's what I've heard. But no need for that anymore. And nothing against acrylic, it's just not useful for like all the blending of things and the subtlety and the values. Acrylic is useful for more kind of like two-tone, like this and this, but not this kind of stuff, like where there's subtlety. It's not as easy. Hey Helen, question: what do you cover your palette with when you put it in the freezer? I currently don't cover it with anything. It just sits on top of stuff. And what you could do, what I did before was I used one of these trays, and these make perfect little pallets because you can actually uh, put the container over it, and it's just an automatic like pallet that's protected. Um, but I currently don't put anything over top of it. From Uncle.
You get a film on it? You get a film on it when you take it out of the refrigerator and start repainting?
Yeah, it has a little bit of frost, but it's not like it thaws out pretty quickly. It's not anything that concerns me. And I think keeping it in the freezer might have something to do with why the paint is drying faster than usual. I think, I don't know, maybe not. But I
That's
haven't had,
interesting.
yeah, I haven't had any issues with it drying over in the freezer. I mean, some stuff will dry. I mean, all of that's still wet. But even if it does dry, this is a plexiglass. I can easily scrape it off. So from Uncle 62, find water mixable more or less glossy than regular oil paints. I think they're, in terms of like the sheen, like the shininess, they are a little less shiny, which makes them glare less. These don't glare as much as the traditional paints do for me. That might vary though from brand to brand. Like I'm using Cobra, so a lot of what I'm saying is about Cobra. So it could be different with other brands. And in terms of the water, look at the color of it. You like mineral spirits would probably not do this. So it's a little interesting seeing. I wish I could show you what it looks like. But you can almost see like the individual pieces of paint in there. It's kind of neat, which has nothing to do with painting. But anyway, and the brushes do clean really easily. I mean, this is pretty much already clean. And I use traditional. The brushes that I would use with traditional is what I'm using right now. I didn't have to switch my brushes. So that's a nice thing. Yeah, so this jar is actually a salt shaker. So there's little tiny crevices, little holes on the top. So I'm going to paint in those little details now. And you may not be able to. Let me check here. Actually, you can see it. Never mind. Does it show up, Ingrid, on the Zoom camera?
Yes, it does.
Oh, okay. Yeah, these are little.
Oh yeah, it looks nice. Yeah.
These are pretty fun things to paint in a still life, because they're really. The illusion can be done with just like two paint strokes or two strokes of paint, whatever, two brush strokes. That's one. So one for the dark, one for the light. You see that in a lot of like classical old master paintings. Dark against light, like little pinholes almost.
Mm-hmm. The only medium that you use with your water soluble oil is water. You don't use anything else medium-wise?
Oh yeah, I only use water. And in this case, for example, I'm not using any medium at all. There will be some water residue in the brush after cleaning it from. I cleaned it when I switched from these darks to the lights. I cleaned off the brush a little bit, but at this point, I'm not using any medium at all. So it's just the consistency of the paint.
And you're using light layers, not a heavy paint?
Yeah, not a heavy paint. Well, what I usually do is I charge the brush it's pretty full of paint, but I apply kind of like a light pressure to it. Yeah, something like that. And that's why I like sables. Sables they give you so much control. It's almost like a marker. So sables are soft like a synthetic, but they can hold a ton of paint like a bristle.
What brand are you using for that?
This is the silver brush brand.
Oh yes, I know those.
Yeah, these are the pure red sables. This one is old, really old, so you can see the wording is almost gone. Yeah, the pure red sables. I think they're called Renaissance. Yeah, they're called Renaissance.
Okay.
Okay, so next up, I'm gonna go back into that highlight, make it look a little brighter. I'm gonna mix up kind of like a bluish, foggy looking color. So I can mix a ton of paint on the brush and then just apply a kind of like a light pressure
Okay.
and it scatters the paint nicely. I mean, that's why I usually paint kind of like in this patting motion. What I'm trying to do is surround this highlight with a bunch of different colors that are a little bit darker, and then I'm gonna punch up the highlight by surrounding it with darks.
And are you using very light strokes?
Yeah, nothing too heavy.
I like the way you can blend with your water soluble oils.
Yeah, the water mixables, they're not as stiff, I guess. Well, my palette has um, all. Let's see. The white is opaque. The red and the yellow are semi-transparent, and then the blue is fully transparent. So the transparent paint allows me to move it around a little bit. It's a little bit easier to move around, but it's not to say that that wouldn't work with things like cadmiums. It might work. I just haven't really experimented with it as much.
When I started painting, I started with acrylics, and I didn't like them because I wasn't able to do blending because they dried too quickly. So then I moved on to oil painting, basic, the traditional oils, but then there was too many solvents that you had to use, and I found it very messy, and it would stain, and things were hard to remove the stains. Then I went to the water soluble, and I just loved them because I could just use water, and it gets on things that's so easy to clean. And I find it very easy to blend into use. So it's my new favorite medium.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's really simple to use, which is why I think it will change change painting as a whole because it's more accessible to people. You don't have to worry about your rags spontaneously lighting on fire. Which, by the way, anyone watching this, that's very rare. That's one of the concerns that a lot of people have um, with any, like, for example, if you leave something of like a thing of linseed oil, like a rag with linseed, it is probably not going to spontaneously light on fire. The odds of that are probably the same as, I don't know, you winning like $1,000 with the lottery. It can happen. It's just not a very high probability that it will. In case something really dumb happens, like, I don't know, someone drops a candle or something, like, then those are, there's more things to be concerned about if that's happening.
It's just possible.
Yeah, it's possible, but not likely. So now to punch up the highlight, I'm going to use white and the tiniest amount of, I guess, whatever this red was on here, but mostly white. I don't think that ateliers in particular, like traditional art schools, will teach any. I mean, they might, but I doubt that they'll teach classes using these. However, students will show up with water mixables all the time. I mean, that was the case when I was teaching in person. So there's kind of a gap there in knowledge, I think, between teacher and student. I think really, if anybody wants to get really good with water mixable, I think it is possible. I think you can go even further with it than traditional, but it takes a lot of experimentation at first. But what I've come up with is really simple. It's almost like it's too good to be true kind of a thing. But you're seeing it. I mean, I'm not lying to you. You see how the painting it eventually became like a traditional looking painting, and no mediums, nothing, just the water to begin with. I don't know any other. I guess there might be other people that teach that, but it's so simple. It's unbelievably simple.
You probably do varnish your painting eventually.
Eventually, yeah, I'll varnish them, but I will probably wait like a year or so. And these, since they don't sink in, the main reason that I'll varnish something or use like a retouch varnish of some sort is to photograph the painting in the final stages. And I don't have that concern because they don't sink in. And let's see here. Hold on a second. So, Ingrid, if you're watching this, the Zoom cut off. I forgot to check the timer. But, as you know, it's the same link each week. Which, by the way, everybody watching this and wondering how I can teach you and help you out online, my classes are on Zoom and YouTube. The YouTube part I usually don't do publicly, but I've been experimenting with it these days. So my students can be with me right now as I'm filming this. Also, they can show me their works in progress. I can give them advice. We can go over any kind of specific questions that they have about their artwork. And that's Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time for still life, and Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time for portrait. And then figure painting this Friday. Same concept, except without YouTube. Hey Ingrid, I forgot to check the timer. My bad. So we got some questions here. Oh good, we've got a couple questions. This is awesome. So Uncle 60, I do find that water mixable oil paints brand tends to stick a little bit using the palette knife compared to regular oil paints. They seem not as creamy, specifically designed. Water mixable mediums help. Well, good. I mean, like if you can find a medium that helps and it makes the painting process more enjoyable, then use it. Yeah, definitely use it. I just mean that I found a way to keep it super minimal, kind of minimalist. Amber, oh, thanks for joining. Oh, good. I'm glad that you're here. Welcome, Amber. Uncle 60. Yeah, Cobra has a series on their paints. Yeah, I watched those series. I probably should mention that. So they have, Cobra has the, I haven't seen any recent ones, but when I started using them years ago, they would say that they put them through like light fastness tests, like chamber tests or whatever. So Cobra has a lot of useful information on the science involved in it. I am not a very sciencey person, so if you want to ask me science questions, I will likely quote something before I try to sound all smart and know the specific chemical reactions that occur. Again, this is pretty much just pushing highlights now to get that glass look. Ingrid, are you still here? Yeah, sorry about the timer going off there. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do one more pass at the background actually, the more I stare at this. And I'm painting this thing from life. So it looks different to me than what you're seeing on the photograph. So I see a lot more contrast. One thing that's fun to do with highlights, especially when you're working with color, change up the color of each highlight. Make it more visually engaging than just having the highlight be each the same color. That can be kind of boring if they're all the same color.
On your highlights, you do not use just pure white?
No, I'm changing up the color per highlight. I usually won't use pure white as a highlight. That's just something that I was taught years ago. Just like I won't use pure black for a dark anywhere.
That's what
Yeah, that's just
I
what
understand that.
I was just taught that a long time ago. But I'm sure you could do it. I mean, it's probably not gonna change that much. But
I think it makes a difference.
yeah, it's just a little painting convention. But I do try to make like this, make one more kind of more red, the other more blue, one more green, something a little more yellow. This is my
Makes it more interesting.
yeah, my background. My first painting teacher, he was a Henry Henchy student, so every plane change is a color change was instilled on me when I was like 17, 18. So that's just something that I carry with me. And I do teach, we do have color study lessons in the online classes as well. It's just not the most popular subject in the world, so I don't do it that often. So I got a question here from Amber. When layering with water mixable paints, would you say it's similar results? And yeah, for sure, it's similar results to regular oil paint. I think if you showed me two paintings, you like this one in particular. You know what? Let's do that. I like that question because I can actually do something with that. So let's do something with that. I will take out a Rembrandt because I'm sure I have one somewhere. Done with traditional, and we'll look at the Rembrandt done with the water mixable. See if there are that many noticeable differences. Excellent question. I do approve of that question. Do I even have a... Oh man, I have a sergeant. Sergeant doesn't count. Not for this test. Let's see here. I got a stack of paintings. This is why I'm just using the sheet of canvas instead, because even with panels it takes up so much space. I mean a lot of space, really. Okay, let's see. There's gotta be something. Okay, there's a Nelson Shanks. Okay, that works. So we can use the Nelson Shanks. Got some still lives. Alright, so we got the Nelson Shanks. Let's go over. I have all these paintings. I know you can't see what I'm going through. I'm just trying to find. Okay. Just trying to find the most like realistic looking heads that are done. Okay, there we go. Found the Rembrandt. I knew I had to have one somewhere. Oh, good. I found 3 of them. Honestly, you two.
Made a lot of Rembrandt.
Yeah. Honestly, you two have done a lot of Rembrandts. I don't know how many Rembrandts I've done. But here's a teaser, YouTube. I plan on doing a painting series of dogs. I intend to paint every breed in the world of dogs.
Quite a few.
Yeah, it's a lot, but yeah, more about that in the future. One thing at a time today. Alright, so let's go ahead and get these paintings so we can compare them to the water mixable. Alright, so we are going to use, let's say, yeah, we'll just use the more recent painting that I've got. Alright, so these are a bunch of traditional paintings. So this is a Nelson Shanks. This one is a Rembrandt. The rest of them will be Rembrandts. This is one here. This one has sunken in a lot. Like you could tell, like here, that light shouldn't be there. That one has sunken in a lot. Although, hold on a second. Yeah, I'm gonna have to explain this one a little bit more. This one is another Rembrandt. That has sunken in a lot, right there. And this is another Rembrandt. And this is another Rembrandt. This one has sunken in tremendously over here. So let me explain something about this Rembrandt in particular. This was one of my earlier experiments with water mixable. So I actually used it with traditional, but I thinned out the paint with spiked lavender. So technically this is traditional, not water mixable. So the technicality with that one. But let's take something similar, just a Rembrandt head that has the dark background look. And we're gonna do a side by side with the Cobra. How about that? Let's see. Let's not put it right onto the wet paint, but okay. So would I be able to tell which one is water mixable? Well, you've got a 50-50 guess, so you have a pretty good chance of guessing the correct one. But as you look at them, yeah, as you look at them, it's really hard to tell. It's
very difficult.
It's difficult to tell which is water mixable, which is not. And I think I might have painted this one a little bit better than this one. But anyway, this one is traditional, and this one has sunken in a lot over here. So if I move it to the glare side, say, I don't know, I move it right here, this light here would not normally be that light. This gray is supposed to be dark. Now if we look at this one, this is a similar part of the painting, and you can see the difference between the two. What sinking in actually looks like. So this is a sunken in part of a traditional oil painting, and this is a similar part, almost the same part of the canvas, and you can tell that hasn't sunken in. And you're probably asking me, did that actually sink in, or are you just making that up? So I have a way to show you that, and not that I'm going to be using traditional anyway, but this is medium, Neo McGill. So I'm not the most, okay, don't do this at home, but I'm putting it on my finger. Yeah, don't do that at home because that's petroleum distillate. You don't want that on your fingers. So I'm going to oil out just part of the painting. You see that? See the difference? Right there? That's the value it's supposed to be. And that's the value that this currently is. Both of them are dry. This one is traditional, this is water mixable. But that sunk in. So in order for me to continue working on that painting, I'd have to oil out this entire section of the painting. I'd have to apply medium, and see how I left a gap there? Look at the difference between that. So in a sense, I hate to say it, but in a sense, the Cobra is better. It's better at creating a Rembrandt-looking finish than what Rembrandt himself used. For our purposes, it's better because it doesn't sink in. It's easier to use, and it's not that different. Like, it really isn't that different. The finish of it. So that is that suggests at least that it is definitely, they look similar. I got on a tangent there, but I did like that question. And don't put Neo McGill on your fingers, just because you saw some not so smart person on the internet do it. Don't do it. Anyway, so let's take a look at the time. So it is now 11, and the still life, I'm taking it far enough, at least as far as I want to take it. These days I don't really like paintings that are super photographic finish. I could take it that far if I want to, but I don't want to. I don't like that aesthetic. I was going to make this darker, but I think I like it the way it is. So this is the part where I'll ask if there are any last minute questions on YouTube. And of course, Ingrid, we can stay a little bit longer if you want to. Oh, I don't think, never mind. Ingrid had to go. So YouTube, let me know if there are any last minute questions. Hey Jonas, welcome. Thanks for all the likes, everyone. We got about 15 likes. That's awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Tweezel. So let's see. From Tweezel, I'm not getting on with Cobra. Let's see, they have fewer paints than traditional. That's okay. No worries. You can use traditional, it's totally fine. So from Mark, when you're painting the shadow, is it a purplish kind of color? Yeah, I'd sometimes do throw in a purplish shade to the darks. I also don't have, so my palette is, it doesn't have a black. So in order to get a dark, I have to use blue. So that'll make it look kind of purplish anyway. So from Teresa, where can I find the recordings of your past videos? Well, I have on my YouTube channel. There's a lot of videos that I made, like tutorials that I made for more specifically portrait painting in the past. For the online classes, for example, like number one, like the beginning painting, the painting to do after the beginning painting, how to draw, all the fundamentals. That on my Patreon, I send all my students a list of class projects whenever I get onto the computer. So for example, if somebody were to sign on it to the online classes, say on I don't know, like 3 a.m. or something, or in the weekend, there's some time where I'm away from the computer. I usually don't send it until I'm back on the computer, but I send it as frequently as soon as I can. But yeah, on the YouTube channel or on the Patreon. Yep, thanks, Jonas. Alright, so thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Again, this is part of my online classes on Patreon, so if you are interested in taking classes with me, remember the way that the classes work is that I will send you a list of class projects, starting with the easiest, going on to the more complicated ones. And of course, you're able to get advice from me during class, 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time Monday and Wednesday. Monday again is Still Life, that starts at $5 a month. Wednesday starts at $10 a month. Wednesday also gets you access to Monday. I also create a weekly video called the Virtual Classroom that gives you feedback on your artworks, whether it's class projects or your own personal painting. Oh, thanks, Weasel. Thank you. All right, I wish you all the very best, and I will see you again very soon.